What's up, guys? In this video we're going to be going over the distortion section of Serum. It's right here in the effects tab and right here in this. That's how you enable it. You have multiple distortion settings, basically wave shaping. You have your transfer function window, which gives you a visual representation of what's going on. And I will just insert a sine wave like so. Sine. So this is how you can see what's going on. So we'll turn distortion off and you will see a pure and clean tone, pure and clean sine wave equal at the zero crossings. Right here is a zero crossing. And right here you'll see a single harmonic, and this is what a sine wave does. It's just a single harmonic, or a single fundamental. There's no harmonics actually. There's no harmonics. So this is where the signal analyzer really comes to use as an educational tool. So we'll enable distortion, and we'll increase the drive. This is a tube, so this adds more even than odd harmonics. It's very harmonically pleasing, and yeah, that's why there's kind of a fetish the last couple years of like these tube-based systems, because they add distortion. Like, they're not clean, but they add a harmonically pleasing distortion. It will just increase the drive, and you'll see this transfer function shape change. And you'll see more harmonics above the fundamental being added. And you'll see the sine being kind of rounded off at the top. So what's happening is you're driving, say, an op amp or a circuit or whatever, far beyond what it can handle. So what happens is you get something called clipping, soft clipping, or once it reaches a certain amplitude, it will kind of not be able to handle going above that well. And of course, there's different kind of flavors of how that goes. So I will show you full drive sine wave with a tube, and you'll notice that we're kind of rounding off, and it's kind of turning into a square wave. So what we're doing is we're shaping the sine into something else. Tube is pretty gentle, and soft clip, again, kind of similar. Hard clip will completely shave off the top once it reaches a certain amplitude, and you'll notice it here in this transfer function. It'll just shave it off. Right? And you'll notice there's different harmonics happening above the fundamental in our spectrum analyzer here. But you'll notice, yeah, that's pretty, like, you know, it can't handle going above that, etc., etc. You get the idea. So there's quite a few. Hard clip, diode. Diode's more squarey. Diode 2. Once it kind of reaches around here, it'll kind of fold back. That makes any kind of sense? So once it reaches a certain amplitude, it'll overcompensate by kind of slamming down. And you'll notice that when you have that, I'll show you diode 2, you'll notice different kind of harmonics will happen in the spectrum. I'll show you that. Right? Pretty cool. And that's with a sine wave. So if you have something like a saw with, you know, a saw is very rich in harmonics, you'll get a different kind of effect. More harmonics will be added on top of those harmonics, and it'll sound pretty crazy. You have things like sine fold, where it kind of shapes it as a sine wave, right? You'll notice here. Right? And yeah, so you can kind of see what's going on represented in this transfer function window. You have 0 square, which is kind of, we'll take a sine wave and squarify it, or take something else and squarify it at the 0 crossing. So what I mean by 0 crossing, you'll see here, in this little area right here. I'm not really good at explaining this because, yeah, this is, well, yeah. But you can kind of, if you play around with it, you'll slowly get it. You'll notice that sine wave equal lengths up here and in the cycle, different lengths here. And right about here is the zero crossing, and that's kind of silence, assuming there's no DC offset. But this is silence right here, and you'll notice that right around here is silence. And as you increase the drive on the zero square, it'll squarify the zero crossing. That's what it means. Wait, what? What the heck? Oh, I turned the mix down. Weird. Right, you'll see the zero crossing will disappear basically. We have a square. Right, so imagine what that'll do. Downsample, that's different. That is kind of diminishes the sample rate, so you get more of a stair step. Right, you notice the stair step right here. You'll notice that we have harmonics, and that's from like aliasing, and that's an entirely different video, but it lowers the quality, but it adds harmonics, and that can be kind of pleasing. Older gear didn't have a super high sample rate, so you get that aliasing on, especially on like the top end, and I'll give you an example of that. Like if we have it kind of, lower, right? You see one kind of harmonic right there, but as we move up, right, we'll see more things kind of, because, yeah, and to rectify that, you'd want to oversample, but you wouldn't want to oversample the downsample effect. Well, I guess you could, but maybe it might work, but I don't know. Anyway, we have asymmetrical, which kind of reverses it and kind of folds it back. Right, so it takes, once it reaches a certain amplitude that it can't handle, it folds back, which is cool. Rectify is basically what a diode does, so it'll cause it the electricity or the current or voltage can go through it, but it can't go back in, so you can't get the sinusoid. So right, there's no positive amplitude, right? It can only go negative, which is rectification. It can't go in one direction, right? So it's effectively flipped once it goes over that certain amplitude, and that's an interesting effect. A lot of guitar pedals use rectifiers, even wall warts and stuff like that use rectifiers. Anyway, we have our X shaper and asymmetrical X shaper, where you can physically draw in the transfer function. So right here is the zero crossing, and we can kind of do all sorts of crazy stuff, and we'll see that expressed here. A better example is I will kind of reset this by double clicking, and I'll go to edit B. So on this side of the drive, it's edit A. Edit A will keep as a clean signal, and we'll refresh by doing that. Edit B will have our distorted signal. So we'll draw something wacky here, and we'll increase the drive, and you can see what that does. Weird. So as you have more of like a sharp curve, you get more like of a sinusoidal type thing. So we can have this, and this is just a sine wave, remember. That's what the transfer function looks like. And we can do all sorts of crazy stuff. You can modulate that. Smooth it out. Do all sorts of stuff. It sounds kind of FM-y. Sounds kind of cool. Anyway, there's that, and the asymmetrical X shaper. It's a little bit different. I believe that it's this is the zero crossing, but it's a little different on this regard. You get more of a rectifier. I believe it's flipped. Anyway, different flavors. I'm gonna go back to tube. I'm gonna set it something to, let's say single. We'll go just a saw. So this is a saw wave. I have something that already has a lot of harmonics. And what we have here is a filter, and we can have it pre-distortion or post-distortion. So a good technique, so what distortion does is it boosts harmonics, drives harmonic, adds harmonics, does, shapes, does all sorts of crazy stuff. So if we have a filter that is before, we can kind of get rid of certain harmonics via a filter. Right? What a filter does. Right? See how we got rid of all those harmonics? We can do that, and then we can drive post filter, pre-distortion to add those back, and it sounds different. Right? So a good technique would be, well, a technique that I use, you don't have to use, is I'll use a bandpass filter. Do something weird. Go down an octave. Right, we have that, and then I will drive that. Use different distortion types to kind of beef it up, and then I'll move the frequency. Right? And then I can have my sub direct out, bypassing the effect. Right, to add more beef or lamb or something. Anyway, there's that. You can also go post filter. So say if something's a little too crazy, like that. Let's pretend like, let's go sinusoidal fold. We want to kind of tame that with a filter. We can do that. Or we want to boost a little bit. Or I'm clipping. Right, vary FM. Another thing here is a mix knob. So you can kind of parallel distortion. At the beginning, 50-50, we get the original. We can have a mix of the two. We can also add an envelope to the mix and have just a lot of distortion, just briefly. Maybe even more briefly. Right? And there's a way to, kind of add more flavor. Have an extreme amount of distortion at the beginning as an attack, and then have it kind of faded out. And yeah, that is the distortion section. Hopefully I've explained it well-ish. Any questions, leave a comment or whatever. Yeah, thanks for watching. Take care, and we'll be back.